Admiral Kethvar stood before the massive viewing screen of his flagship. The dark metal walls of the command bridge reflected the cold blue light from hundreds of control panels. Around him, his crew worked in silence. They knew what came next. They had done this 17 times before. The holographic display showed their next target. A small yellow star with 9 planets spinning around it. The third planet looked blue and green from space. It had water, land, and most importantly, life. The species called themselves humans, according to the data files. Kethvar touched the control panel with one of his 4 arms. His gray skin felt cold against the metal. His large black eyes studied the information scrolling past. These humans were weak. They had only just learned to leave their home planet. Their technology was basic. They had no faster-than-light travel, no energy shields, no quantum weapons. Perfect. The Zefkari collective had been doing this for 1,000 years. They moved from star to star, like hungry insects. They took everything useful from each world. Metal, water, energy, slaves. They left behind only dead rocks floating in space. Commander Vexital, Kethvar called to his second-in-command. What do the scouts report about this system? Vexital's 3 eyes blinked in sequence as he read from his datapad. The humans live on only one planet, Admiral. They have small colonies on 2 nearby moons, but nothing significant. Population is approximately 8 billion. They appear to be divided into separate groups that fight each other frequently. Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter in his throat. Fighting each other. How typical. Most species did this before the collective arrived. It made conquest easier when the prey was already weakened. Their military capabilities? Kethvar asked. Primitive projectile weapons, chemical explosives, some atomic weapons, but crude ones. Their largest ships are barely capable of reaching their own moon. They have detected our scout probes, but they cannot track our movements. The Admiral nodded with satisfaction. This would be quick. The humans would surrender after seeing what happened to species that refused. They always did. On the display, images of previous conquests appeared. The crystal cities of Veltaran, now melted into glass seas. The floating gardens of Mordeth, burned to ash and scattered in solar winds. The proud warrior race of Kix Andra, their bones now decorating collective museums. Send the standard message, Kethvar commanded. Full spectrum broadcast. Make sure every human communication device receives it. The communications officer worked at her station. Soon the message was ready. It was the same message they had sent to 17 other species. Simple, clear, effective. The holographic transmitter activated. An image of Kethvar appeared in the center of the bridge. His voice was cold and mechanical as the translator worked. People of the third planet. You will know us as the Zefkari Collective. We have come to claim your world and your species. You have one choice. Surrender completely within 72 of your hours, or face total destruction. The image shifted to show recordings of their previous victories. Planets burning. Cities falling. Millions of beings fleeing in terror, before being captured or killed. We have conquered 17 star systems. We have destroyed or enslaved 43 billion intelligent beings. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your defenses cannot stop us. Your only hope is complete submission. The message continued for several minutes. It showed the collective's massive fleet, their planet-killing weapons, their endless armies of biomechanical soldiers. It ended with coordinates where human leaders could send their surrender. Message sent, Admiral, the communications officer reported. It will reach their planet in approximately 6 hours. Kethvar was pleased. Soon, this would be over. The humans would send their surrender message filled with begging and terror. Then his fleet would move in. They would process the useful humans for slavery. The rest would be eliminated. The planet would be stripped of resources. Another victory for the collective. But as he waited, something bothered him. The long-range sensors were picking up unusual readings from the human system. Energy signatures that did not match their supposed technology level. Electromagnetic patterns that seemed too complex for a primitive species. Science Officer Talmir, Kethvar called, explained these sensor readings. Talmir studied his instruments with concern. His tentacles moved quickly over the controls. Admiral, I am detecting energy outputs that exceed our projections for this species. The readings suggest technology more advanced than our initial scans indicated. How much more advanced? Unknown, sir. The patterns are different. Unlike anything in our databases. Kethvar felt the first small touch of doubt. In 1,000 years, the collective had never encountered technology they could not understand, or weapons they could not overcome. Every species followed predictable patterns. But these readings were strange. Could their technology have improved since our first scans? Possible, Admiral. But these signatures suggest capabilities that should have taken them centuries to develop. The Admiral dismissed the concern with a gesture. No matter what small improvements the humans had made, they could not threaten the collective. His fleet contained over 3,000 ships. Each one could destroy a planet. His armies numbered in the billions. Continue monitoring, he ordered. Prepare the fleet for conquest. This species will fall like all the others. But deep in his mind, Kethvar wondered about those strange energy readings. And why a species that was supposedly primitive would build technology that his sensors could not fully understand. Soon they would learn the truth about humanity. Soon they would discover their mistake. The countdown to surrender had begun. Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at the alien message displayed on every screen in the Global Defense Center. Around her, world leaders sat in stunned silence. The holographic images of burning planets and dying civilizations filled the air above the conference table. President Chen of the Asian Federation spoke first. How long do we have? 72 hours, Elena replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. The message was broadcast to every communication device on Earth. Every government, every military, every civilian, with a radio or television, has received it. Prime Minister Okafor of the African Union leaned forward. What are our options? Surrender or fight? Said General Morrison from the American military. Those seem to be the only choices they are giving us. Elena watched as the alien recordings played again. 17 star systems destroyed. Billions of intelligent beings killed or enslaved. The Zefkari collective had never lost a battle. Never faced serious resistance. They moved through space like a disease, consuming everything in their path. But Elena noticed something others had missed. She had spent her career studying communication patterns and psychological warfare. The alien's message was designed to create hopelessness. It was meant to make surrender seem like the only rational choice. There is a third option, she said quietly. The room turned to look at her. Elena stood and walked to the main display. Look at this, she said, gesturing to the data. The aliens have studied our technology, our population, our military capabilities, but they have not studied who we are. Images appeared on the screen. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off thousands. The Siege of Stalingrad, where civilians fought soldiers with kitchen knives. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, where people with almost no weapons fought against impossible odds. Every species they conquered surrendered, Elena continued. They saw the alien fleet and gave up hope. But humans, we do things differently. She pulled up more data. Statistical analyses of human conflicts throughout history. Casualty reports from wars where humans suffered massive losses, but kept fighting. Battle records showing humans choosing death over surrender again and again. We have been fighting each other for thousands of years, Elena said. We have weapons they cannot imagine because they come from our minds, not our factories. General Morrison frowned. What kind of weapons? The refusal to quit. the ability to adapt faster than any computer, the willingness to sacrifice everything for an idea. Elena's eyes were bright, with sudden understanding. They expect us to act like all the other species. But we are not like the others. President Chen looked skeptical. Their technology is far beyond ours. Their fleet could destroy our planet. Yes, Elena agreed. If we fight them the way they expect to be fought. But what if we do not fight fair? What if we do what humans do best? Which is survive, no matter what the cost. Elena began working at her computer. I want to send them a message. Not a surrender. A warning. A warning? Prime Minister Okafor asked. What could we possibly threaten them with? The truth. For the next 6 hours, Elena worked with a team of military historians, psychologists, and language experts. They crafted humanity's response using the aliens' own communication protocols. The message was simple but complete. When it was ready, Elena stood before the transmission array. The message would be broadcast not just to the alien fleet, but to every listening post in the galaxy. Any species with the technology to receive it would hear humanity's answer. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, speaking for the human species and the planet Earth, she began. We have received your ultimatum. We understand your terms. We have seen the fate of those who came before us. She paused, looking directly into the camera. You have made a mistake. We are not your prey. We are humanity. We are Earth. And we do not surrender. Ever. The message continued. But the real impact came from the data package attached to it. Elena had included humanity's complete military history. Every war. Every battle. Every time humans had faced extinction and chosen to fight anyway. Statistical analyses showed that humans had spent over half of their recorded history at war. Documentation proved that humans consistently fought beyond mathematical probability when facing extinction. Battle reports demonstrated human ability to weaponize anything, from diseases to information to their own bodies. Most importantly, Elena included psychological profiles, studies showing that humans became more dangerous when cornered, research proving that human creativity increased under pressure, evidence that humans would choose mutual destruction over slavery. You believe you understand warfare. Elena's message concluded. You do not. You understand conquest. You understand submission. But you have never faced a species that sees death as preferable to defeat. You are about to learn the difference. As the transmission ended, Elena looked around at the world leaders watching her. Now what? General Morrison asked. Now we prepare, Elena replied. We show them what happens when they threaten Earth. Around the globe, humanity began to mobilize. Not to surrender. Not to hide. But to fight in ways the galaxy had never seen. The aliens expected fear and submission. They were about to encounter something they had never faced in 1,000 years of conquest. They were about to face humans with nothing left to lose. Admiral Kethvar expected the usual response from Earth. Panic. Desperate pleas for mercy. Offers to serve as slaves in exchange for survival. Instead, his communication systems received something that made no sense. A warning. The humans were warning him. Kethvar played their message again, studying the strange female who spoke for their species. Her voice was calm. Her eyes showed no fear. She spoke as if she held the superior position in this exchange. Impossible, muttered Vextal from his station. No species has ever responded like this. But it was the data package that truly disturbed Kethvar. His computer systems had automatically translated and analyzed the human historical records. The results made his crew whisper among themselves in their native language. Science Officer Talmir, Kethvar called. Explain these calculations. Talmir's tentacles moved nervously over his controls. Admiral, the human data contains detailed records of their conflicts. Our computers have run probability analyses based on their behavioral patterns. And? The results are troubling, sir. Humans have engaged in warfare for 90% of their recorded history. Not with external threats, but with each other. They have weaponized everything from biological agents to atomic energy. Their casualty tolerance, in critical conflicts, averages 73% before retreat. Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine. I have checked the calculations 17 times, Admiral. In conflicts they consider existential threats. Humans regularly sustain losses that would cause any rational species to surrender immediately. In many cases, they choose total destruction over defeat. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of machinery. Kethvar studied the tactical displays, showing human military capabilities. Their weapons were primitive compared to collective technology. Their ships were slow and clumsy. Their armies were small, but their psychology was alien. Show me the behavioral analysis, Kethvar commanded. The holographic display filled with data. Charts showing human response patterns to threats. Graphs indicating their adaptation rates during conflicts. Statistical models predicting their likely reactions to invasion. Notice this pattern, Admiral, Talmir explained, highlighting sections of the data. When facing superior force, humans do not calculate odds of victory. They calculate maximum damage they can inflict before death. When cornered, they become exponentially more dangerous. Kethvar studied a particular report about something called the Battle of Stalingrad. Humans defending a city had continued fighting in the ruins even after their military was destroyed. Civilians had fought with improvised weapons. Children had carried explosives. The battle had lasted months longer than any tactical analysis predicted possible. This must be propaganda, Kethvar said. No species fights like this. Admiral, Vextal interrupted from his station. We are receiving additional transmissions. From Earth? No, sir. The communication display lit up with incoming signals, dozens of them, then hundreds. They were coming from dead systems, from asteroid belts, from deep space where no civilization was supposed to exist. What is happening? Kethvar demanded. Vextal's voice was strained. Admiral, it appears the human transmission was broadcast on wide spectrum. Other species have intercepted it. They are responding. The first message appeared on screen. It was from survivors of the Mordeth system, hidden in their ruined orbital stations for decades. We heard your message, humans of Earth. We thought all hope was lost. We have weapons hidden. We remember how to fight. Tell us how to help you. More messages followed. The crystal beings of Velteran, thought extinct, transmitting from deep space colonies. Scattered fleets of Kixandra warriors, living as nomads in the dark between stars. Survivor populations from a dozen conquered worlds, emerging from hiding for the first time since their defeats. This is impossible, Kethvar whispered. We destroyed these species. We conquered their worlds. Not all of them, Admiral, Talmir said quietly. It appears many survivors escaped our initial conquests. They have been hiding. Waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to fight back. The communication array was now overwhelmed with incoming messages. Every survivor population in the galaxy seemed to be responding to humanity's call. They were sharing hidden technologies, revealing secret bases, offering to join Earth's resistance. Kethvar watched in growing horror as a network formed before his eyes. Species that had barely known each other were now coordinating their efforts. They were sharing intelligence about collective weaknesses, discussing combined strategies, planning joint operations. Admiral, Vextal reported. Our long-range sensors are detecting movement throughout the galaxy. Ships emerging from hiding. Bases powering up. Fleet formations that have been dark for decades are suddenly active. The humans had done something no conquered species had ever attempted. They had turned their resistance into a signal beacon for every other survivor in the galaxy. Instead of facing one primitive world, the collective was now looking at a coordinated uprising spanning dozens of star systems. How many ships are we detecting? Kethvar asked. Unknown, sir. The numbers keep growing. Conservative estimates suggest several thousand vessels of various classes. Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest. Doubt. Not about the eventual outcome. The collective still held superior technology and numbers, but about the cost. He called up the human psychological profiles again. Their refusal to surrender. Their adaptation under pressure. Their willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Now multiply that by every species in the galaxy that had lost everything to the collective. Change course, Kethvar ordered suddenly. Admiral? Vextal looked confused. I said change course. Set heading for the Proxima system instead. We will find easier prey there. 2. But Admiral, the humans specifically challenged us. To retreat now would show weakness to the entire galaxy. Kethvar stared at the star charts, showing Earth's location. Surrounding it, like points of light in the darkness, were the locations of every responding signal, every survivor fleet, every hidden base, every species that had decided to stop running and start fighting. The humans had not just refused to surrender, they had transformed their defiance into a rallying cry that echoed across space itself. No, Kethvar said slowly. But even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. The galaxy had heard humanity's message, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the prey had decided to become predators. The hunt was about to begin. Admiral Kethvar's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. What he saw there made him understand that retreat was no longer possible. The humans had been busy. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter had been turned into a fortress. Rocks that had drifted in space for millions of years now bristled with weapons and shields. Mining equipment had been converted into mass drivers. Solar collectors powered energy cannons. The asteroids themselves had been hollowed out and connected by defensive networks. How did they do this so quickly? Vextal asked, staring at the tactical display. Earth's moon was no longer just a satellite. Its surface was covered with launch facilities and defensive installations. Mars had orbital platforms that had not existed in their previous scans. The outer planets showed signs of massive industrial activity. They had help, Talmir reported from his station. I am detecting technology signatures from 17 different species, the survivors we detected earlier. They shared their knowledge with the humans. Kethvar studied the readouts with growing unease. In just 72 hours, humanity had built defenses that should have taken years to construct. They had integrated alien technologies into their own systems. They had transformed their entire solar system into a trap. Begin the attack, he ordered. There was no choice now. Half the galaxy was watching this battle. If the collective retreated from one primitive species, their reputation would be destroyed. Other worlds would stop surrendering. The empire would crumble. The first wave of collective ships moved toward the asteroid belt. But it was not the random, panicked shooting the admiral expected from a desperate defense. The humans fought with precision. Every shot was calculated. Every movement was coordinated. They had studied collective tactics from the memories of survivor species. They knew exactly where to aim, when to fire, and how to avoid return shots. Kethvar watched in disbelief as his lead destroyers were picked apart by weapons that should not have been able to penetrate their armor. The humans were using collective technology against itself, modifying captured designs and improving them. Sir, the tactical officer called out. Human vessels are breaking from the asteroid belt. They are moving to engage us directly. The ships that emerged were unlike anything in Kethvar's databases. They were clearly built from human designs but enhanced with alien technology. They moved with the speed of Velteron crystal ships but fired with the precision of Kixandra weapons. But it was the way they fought that truly shocked him. When a human ship was damaged, it did not retreat. It accelerated toward the nearest collective vessel and detonated its reactor. The explosion took out 2 of his cruisers. When human fighters ran out of ammunition, they rammed into collective fighters rather than surrender. Each collision destroyed both ships, but the humans seemed to consider this acceptable. "Admiral," Vextal reported with horror in his voice, "the humans are broadcasting their tactical discoveries to every ship in the system. When they learn something about our weaknesses, they share it immediately with all other vessels." This was unprecedented. Most species hoarded tactical information, even during battles. Command structures were rigid. Orders flowed down from leaders to followers, but the humans were fighting like a single organism, sharing knowledge instantly across their entire force. Even worse, they were broadcasting their discoveries to the galaxy. "Sir, we are detecting transmissions leaving the system," the communications officer reported. "The humans are sharing everything they learn about our technology with every survivor species." Kethvar realized with growing dread that this battle was not just about conquering Earth. It was a training exercise for the rest of the galaxy. Every weakness the humans discovered would be known to every rebel fleet in space. "Focus all firepower on the 3rd planet," he commanded. "If we cannot win this battle, we will at least eliminate the source of resistance." The collective fleet turned its planet-killing weapons toward Earth. Beams of energy that could crack continents lanced toward the blue world. And then something impossible happened. The beams stopped. Energy shields appeared around Earth that were stronger than anything the collective had ever encountered. The planet's surface lit up with defensive installations that had been hidden until that moment. Weapons emerged from underground bunkers. Orbital platforms revealed themselves. "How?" Kethvar whispered. "The moon, Admiral," Talmir said with awe in his voice. "They hollowed out their moon. The entire interior is one massive defensive system. It is generating a protective field around their planet." But the real shock came when Earth's weapons fired back. The beams that struck Kethvar's flagship were not just powerful. They were designed specifically to penetrate collective armor, using data from 17 different conquered species. The humans had taken the best defensive technology from across the galaxy and turned it into offensive weapons. His flagship shuddered under the impact. Damage reports flooded in from across the fleet. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being destroyed by a species that had barely learned to travel between planets. "Admiral," Vextal called out. Multiple fleets dropping out of faster-than-light travel throughout the system. Kethvar turned to see his worst nightmare become reality. Ships from every conquered species in the galaxy were arriving to join the battle. They had been waiting in hidden bases, preparing for this moment. The crystal ships of Velteron appeared in formations not seen for 50 years. Kixandra warships emerged from the darkness, their crews hungry for revenge. The bio-ships of Mordeth, thought extinct, joined the growing fleet. "How many ships?" Kethvar asked. "Over 8,000 and still arriving, sir. They represent 43 different species." The Admiral looked at his tactical display. His 3,000 ships were now surrounded by a coalition fleet, 3 times their size. Every vessel was crewed by beings who had lost their homes to the collective. Every captain had watched their world burn. And leading them all were the humans. The species that had refused to surrender. The species that had turned a hopeless last stand into a rallying cry for the galaxy. "Orders, Admiral?" Vextal asked quietly. Kethvar stared at the swirling battle around Earth. Human ships continued to fight with impossible determination. Allied vessels struck with precision, born of intimate knowledge of collective weaknesses. The space around the blue planet had become a graveyard of his ships. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Zefkari collective was losing. "Signal full retreat," he whispered. "Sir?" "Signal full retreat," Kethvar shouted. "All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. We leave this system now." As his remaining ships prepared to flee, Kethvar watched one last human transmission broadcast across the galaxy. It was simple, clear, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. "This is Earth. We stand We fight. We remember the dead. To all species in the galaxy, the age of conquest is over. The age of justice has begun. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood on the command deck of the captured collective dreadnought that now served as Earth's flagship. Through the massive viewing windows, she could see the wreckage of what had once been the galaxy's most feared fleet floating in the darkness around Earth. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Earth. 3 months since humanity had done the impossible and turned a surrender ultimatum into a galactic uprising. The aftermath had changed everything. Status report, Elena requested from Captain Martinez, who had been promoted to lead Earth's growing space fleet. The collective's remaining forces have retreated to their home system, Martinez reported, reading from his tablet. Our allied scouts estimate they have fewer than 300 ships left. Their leadership is in chaos. Admiral Keth Var was executed by his own people for the failure here. Elena nodded. The Zefkari collective, which had terrorized the galaxy for 1,000 years, was finally broken. But the real victory was not military. It was what had happened after the battle. What about the refugee populations? She asked. Returning to their home systems. The Velteron have begun rebuilding their crystal cities. The Kixandra are establishing new warrior schools. The Mordeth are replanting their orbital gardens. 17 dead star systems are showing signs of life again. Elena smiled. This was what mattered most. The collective had tried to erase entire civilizations from existence. Now those civilizations were coming back from the edge of extinction, stronger and more united than ever before. Through the viewing window, she could see ships from dozens of different species working together. Human engineers worked alongside crystal beings to repair battle damage. Kixandra warriors trained with human marines. Scientists from 43 species shared their knowledge freely. Director, came a voice from the communications station. We are receiving a transmission from the Proxima system. The collective forces there are requesting surrender terms. Elena raised her eyebrows. They want to surrender to us? Yes, ma'am. They say they do not wish to face the same fate as Admiral Kethvar's fleet. The irony was not lost on Elena. The species that had demanded unconditional surrender from Earth was now begging for mercy from the alliance they had created through their own brutality. What are our people recommending? Elena asked. Captain Martinez consulted his reports. The Alliance Council suggests accepting their surrender with conditions. Full disclosure of collective technology. Reparations to survivor populations. Dismantling of their war machine. And, most importantly, trials for war crimes. Elena considered this. 3 months ago, she had been a simple communications specialist. Now, she found herself helping to reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. It was not a responsibility she had wanted, but it was one she had accepted. Approved, she said. But make it clear that these terms are not negotiable, and inform them that any attempt to resume hostilities will result in the complete destruction of their remaining forces. As the communications officer transmitted the response, Elena reflected on how much had changed. The message that had made the galaxy quiver was not really about human military power. It was about human refusal to accept defeat. But more than that, it was about the power of hope. For centuries, conquered species had hidden in the darkness, believing resistance was impossible. They had accepted that the collective was too powerful to defeat. Then, humanity had shown them something different. Not superior technology or overwhelming force, but the simple truth that some things were worth fighting for, no matter the odds. Director, Captain Martinez said quietly. There is something else. The archaeologist teams exploring collective territory have found evidence of other species. Civilizations that were completely wiped out before they could even surrender. Elena felt a chill. How many? Unknown. Possibly hundreds. The collective kept detailed records. They seem to have treated genocide as routine, administrative work. The weight of responsibility settled heavier on Elena's shoulders. The Alliance had not just saved themselves, they had prevented the extinction of countless future civilizations. Every species the collective would have encountered in their continued expansion was now safe. Make sure those records are preserved, Elena ordered. Every species has the right to know what happened to their predecessors. And make sure the trials include charges for those lost civilizations as well. A new voice spoke from behind her. Dr. Vasquez? Elena turned to see Ambassador Velcathryn, of the Crystal People approaching. His translucent body reflected the light from the control panels in beautiful patterns. Ambassador, how can I help you? I wanted to personally thank you for what your species has done. My people had given up hope of ever returning to our home system. We had accepted that our civilization was dead. But now, the crystal being gestured toward the viewing window, where ships from his people worked alongside human vessels. Now we build something new, he continued. Not just the restoration of what was lost, but something better. A galaxy where no species needs to face extinction alone. Elena nodded. That was always the goal, Ambassador. Not just to survive, but to make sure this never happens again. Over the following weeks, Elena watched as the Alliance grew stronger. Trade routes reopened between systems. Cultural exchanges began. Scientific knowledge flowed freely between species. Children of different races learned each other's languages. The collective's reign of terror was over, but more importantly, the galaxy had learned a new way to exist. Instead of strong species dominating weak ones, they now had cooperation. Instead of conquest and slavery, they had mutual aid and shared prosperity. But Elena knew the real test was still to come. Building an alliance in war was easy, compared to maintaining it in peace. Different species had different needs, different values, different ways of thinking about the universe. Director, Captain Martinez approached her with a new report. The final collective stronghold has fallen. The last of their war fleets have surrendered. The galaxy is officially free. And Elena looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new civilizations were developing. Species that would never know the fear of collective conquest, ships appearing in their skies. Worlds that would grow and flourish without the threat of extinction hanging over them. Signal all Alliance ships, Elena commanded. Prepare for the return journey to Earth. It is time to go home. As the great fleet began its journey back to the small blue planet where it all began, Elena thought about the message that had started everything. A simple declaration that humans would never surrender. But it had become so much more than that. It had become a promise to the galaxy that no species would ever face extinction alone again. That hope would always exist as long as someone was willing to fight for it. The galaxy had learned to quiver not with fear, but with the power of those who refused to accept defeat. And in that quivering, new worlds were born.